These are the largest lifting machines ever made. They're designed to lift the heaviest loads needed on a construction site and to haul the largest objects to where they need to go. Join me as we take a look at 15 of the biggest cranes and lifting equipment. Number 15. Manitowoc MLC 650. Alright, kicking off with some heavy lifting on our list is the big red machine known as the Manitowoc MLC 650. This Big Daddy crane was introduced to the world of construction and contracting at an expo back in 2014, but it's safe to say that it was way too big to fit inside of the building. The MLC 650 is what's known as a lattice boom crawler crane, and while it may not look like much when it's resting, once you hit the switch for beast mode, it can reach over 670 feet high. So just to put that into perspective, that's tall enough to reach higher than New York City's Trump Tower by a good 10 feet. But because of its sheer size, it takes a lot of work to keep this thing from tipping over. So the manufacturer employed a variable position counterweight that can automatically position itself in relation to the crane itself as it carries one massive load after another. And that counterweight alone weighs about 400 tons, which is perfect because the MLC 650 can lift about 700 tons at a time. Well, why do you need a crane like this? Well, this crane was built specifically for big jobs, like building and moving windmill parts in South Korea, giant tunnel boring machines in Australia, and transmission towers out in the US state of Virginia. But more recently, one of these big reds was employed for construction of a new baseball stadium in Texas in 2020. Looks like everything really is bigger in Texas. Number 14. Dmag CC 8800 Just barely beating out the Manitowoc MLC 650 is the Dmag CC 8800-1. The Dmag reaches a height of 675 feet, just a foot or so more than our previous entry. This big yellow and blue machine is an absolute beast and a crowd favorite when it comes to the world of building as high as you can. In fact, this Dmag CC can grow as tall as 2 Big Bens. It's got a max carrying capacity of well over 1,200 tons, and its bread and butter are the things like wind turbines and steel beams. And while the Dmag CC has been seen erecting steel structures for Turkish power plants, it's an absolute favorite of the United States, so don't be surprised if you see one of these as you pass the next big American mega project. And speaking of mega projects, one of these was used to help build the Ferenc Puskás Stadium in Budapest. The stadium took about 2 years to build, and now it has a maximum capacity of over 67,000. It's an absolutely awesome crane, one of the largest in the world, and will eat your little Tonka crane for breakfast, and maybe even ask for seconds. Number 13. Manitowoc 31000. Manitowoc is showing up again on this list, proving that they are one of the best crane manufacturers in the world, and they only get bigger and better with each new creation. Their new 31000 model goes with their classic bright red paint job, which juxtaposes perfectly against the blue sky and just dominates any skyline. These lattice boom crawlers can reach all new heights of about 680 feet up and are able to lift about 2,300 tons at a time like it's nothing. But you have to ask yourself just how something this large is being moved around. It's on a track, so then is it driving down the highway under overpasses? Think again. The team at Manitowoc had to think a little outside the box on their creation of the 31000. So they designed it to be disassembled at the factory, transported, and then reassembled at the construction site. The entire assembly process, though, takes a full month to complete. That's pretty much the biggest Lego set in the world. But the 31000 model features the same counterweight system as its sister crane, which can calculate the weight and move all on its own. The very first model was built in 2012, perhaps to help aid in the reconstruction after the Armageddon that never came that year. But instead, these were shipped out to South Korea, where they broke records for weights lifted in the natural gas plants. Like some of the others we've already seen, the Manitowoc 31000 is a go-to for the building of sports stadiums. But don't be surprised if 1 or 2 turn up at the local nuclear power plants for some heavy radioactive lifting. Number 12. AL SK350. You can't let the US-based companies have all of the fun. AL is a heavy lifting machine manufacturer based out in the United Kingdom, and while they don't crush the competition, they simply lift them up and move them aside. Their AL SK350 is one of their top-of-the-line creations, and all others pale in comparison. This SK350 was unleashed in 2013, and for a brief moment in time it was known as the world's largest capacity land-based crane. It maintained the title for a good 6 years before someone else managed to stand just a little taller. But the SK350 is still a beast, with its max height of 720 feet tall, carrying a capacity of 5,000 tons. This is another crane, though, that's just way too big to be left in one piece, so it takes a whole crew to disassemble and then reassemble it between jobs, with the entire process lasting about 4 weeks. So if you need to start construction in February, you need to start putting this guy together in January. The SK350 is the favored crane in the colder reaches of Canada, specifically for the oil and gas fields, but a few of these models have even made their way to the likes of Brazil. And these are pretty tough to miss, too, with their intimidating red and black paint job. Number 11. Liebherr LR11000. The Liebherr LR11000 is the 6th tallest crane in the world, able to reach new heights of about 728 feet into the air, which is taller than 2 statues of Liberty stacked on top of each other. That's pretty crazy. Another lattice boom crawler, the Liebherr LR11000, is just 8 years old, having been introduced to the world in 2014. Specifically for things like port handling, infrastructure, wind power, and industrial construction. She's versatile, and so far there's not much that the Liebherr LR11000 can't do, because she's got a lifting capacity of 1,000 tons and gets a little help from her hefty 790-ton counterweight. Just make sure you don't drop it. But what sets this crane apart from the rest is her state-of-the-art V-shaped frame, which allows her to operate during even the nastiest of winds. And she can quickly move her derrick ballast into the right position quickly and efficiently before anything goes wrong. It may sound a little nerdy, but she's one of the first to do it, and more importantly, it keeps everyone safe. Because what good is being the best if you end up hurting everyone around you in the process? This Liebherr LR11000 is used for all of the fun heavy lifting needed in European locales like Germany and Switzerland. But she's even made a few guest appearances in Hawaii, powerlifting wind turbines. Number 10. Dmag CC8800 Twin. Dmag is a solid crane manufacturer, so it should come as no surprise that they've turned up on this list again. Their CC8800 Twin may seem like a Terminator model sent from the future, but it's actually the 5th largest crane in the world today. When she stretches out as far as it can go, she's got her head in the clouds at about 735 feet up, making it the perfect place for a bird's nest. This German-made crane stands out from other cranes in the crowd, with the twin kit of its namesake. So then what's a twin kit? Well, the twin kit is a 2-boom system freely mounted onto the carrier, and the double booms means double the lifting power, because this lattice boom crawler has a serious lift capacity of 3,200 tons, which is actually twice the strength of its cohorts. This Dmag model has been around for quite some time, since 2007, and typically lives and works in the United Arab Emirates, working on their massive mega projects like the Burj Khalifa, nuclear sites, and of course, oil refineries. The Dmag CC8800 Twin is absolutely awesome, and if you grew up playing with construction vehicle toys, then operating one as an adult would just be a dream come true. Number 9. Dmag CC8800-1. If the last entry on our list were twins, then this would be the only child. The Dmag CC8800-1 is a great crane in its own right, but perhaps a less intense version of the twin. And while this thing may only have one boom to work with, that boom is reaching higher than the twin cranes, reaching up into the stratosphere at just under 780 feet up. The crane was introduced even further back than the twins, in 2002, and it immediately became the largest crane in the world upon release, which is by no means an easy task. Nowadays, though, it's been knocked down a few pegs and holds the title of being the 4th tallest. But working with its near 1,000-ton counterweight, the 8800 has a maximum lift capacity of 1,600 tons. But if you like it and just want to carry a little bit more, then you're in luck, because in 2012, Dmag released the Boom Booster Kit. Once that's installed, the 8800 can lift up to a grand total of 3,000 tons. And while this may be German-made, this boom crawler travels the globe and can be found at big-time construction sites all around the world, thanks to that optional boom booster. Here comes the boom. Number 8. Mammoet PTC200DS. Never bet on red unless you're betting on the awesome crane known as the Mammoet PTC200DS. One of the largest of its kind in the world, this tall drink of water hails from the Netherlands and was introduced to the world of building and moving big things in 2011. This looks a little different from what we've been seeing so far, because the Mammoet PTC200DS is a ring crane, meaning it pivots around on its own ring track. But just how tall is it? Well, its main boom alone is 460 feet tall, but that's not even its final form. When it's fully extended, the boom can reach a max height of 808 feet. That's taller than not one, not two, but four leaning towers of Pisa stacked on top of each other. And you can bet your bottom dollar that something this epic is going to have a beefy lift capacity. The Mammoet PTC200DS can lift a full 3,500 tons at a time and swing that around on its 360-degree track. This big red machine is a fan favorite in places like Belgium and Brazil, where it works hard on their offshore petrochemical plants, looking like its own skyscraper. Number 7. Liebherr LR13000. Make sure you leave it to Liebherr. Again, the German-Swiss manufacturer managed to strike gold again when they released their LR13000 in 2010. And just when you thought you couldn't get any higher, this thing kicks it up to 11 and will take you up to 814 feet straight up. Just make sure you don't look down. Not only is this one of the tallest of its kind in the world, but it's also the strongest conventional crawler crane to date, able to lift 3,000 tons at a time. Aside from height and strength, the LR13000 is a one-of-a-kind crane because it's able to work without a derrick ballast system because of Liebherr's patented slewing rig. Hey, they really know what they're doing over there, and with so many cranes reaching their way up to the heavens and competing for our attention, you have to find a way to stand out and always offer something new. The LR13000 can take on just about any job there is. So sure, you can find it at the construction sites hauling around steel beams for skyscrapers or lifting blades for wind farms, but it's also perfect for power plants, offshore refineries, and even the harbors of the world. There are only a few of these models in existence, so seeing one is like seeing the world's biggest unicorn. Number 6. KROLL K1000. The next crane on our list is absolutely out of control. It's the KROLL K1000. Where to even begin with this one? Well, for starters, the KROLL K1000 is 470 feet tall, making it the tallest freestanding crane in the world. It's got a full 360-degree rotation capability, and that jib at the top can reach out well over 300 feet. This world's tallest crane operates on a pretty small foundation, so it's the perfect thing for large-scale industrial projects. One of the most famous projects it's been part of is the construction of the Chernobyl power plant. Yeah, that Chernobyl. Which also means that the KROLL K1000 has been around for a long time. And with a maximum lift capacity of 240 tons, it's not so bad for an old man. And to only add to the mysticism of this crane is the fact that so few of them exist today. But the ones that do are still floating around the world and are pretty hard to miss because they almost take up 8 acres of space each. Number 5. Tears of Malma. The next piece of heavy lift equipment on our list is so epic it's gonna make you cry. The Kockums crane, better known as Tears of Malma, was built between 1973 and 1974 in South Korea. A high gantry crane from Hyundai Heavy Industries, she's capable of lifting 1,500 tons at a time and stood at an incredible 459 feet tall. The Tears of Malma was a force to be reckoned with and was responsible for construction of 75 ships for about 20 years. During her heyday, this gantry crane was a landmark of Malma, a municipality in Sweden, and everybody knew who she was. Yeah, she was pretty tough to miss. Unfortunately, though, all good things must come to an end, and Tears of Malma was dismantled in 2002. Her life went full circle, and she was brought back to her birthplace of South Korea and was sold back to Hyundai Heavy Industries for the mind-blowing price of just $1 US. And it was here that she finally earned her eponymous nickname, because it's said that as she was towed back out to sea, the residents of Malma wept for their once gallant gantry crane. Number 4. SSCV Tielf. The SSCV Tielf is a well-known vessel in the circles of seafarers. She's a heavy-lift crane ship built in the mid-1980s and classified as a DCV, or Deepwater Construction Vessel. It's outfitted with 2 enormous cranes that can each lift well over 14,000 tons alone. So just imagine how much they can lift if they work together. Yeah, if you're not great at math, nearly 30,000 tons of stuff in the clutches of this thing. She's incredibly unique for her class and is one of the largest vessels of her kind to operate within offshore areas. And because she's been around for 30 years, she's got a lot of great projects under her belt, like helping install the upsides of vessel hulls, mooring, moving pipes, and rig support sparring. Anything that needs a big-time construction crew on the high seas, she's there. The SSCV Tielf has a breadth of 290 feet and a length of 660 feet. Her deck is so big that it even holds a flight deck for a Boeing Chinook 234 class chopper and requires 700 crew members to keep her up and running. She's definitely a prime example of being an oldie but a goodie. Number 3. SSCV Sleepnir. When a piece of heavy lift equipment is named after Odin's eight-legged horse in Norse mythology, you know it's going to be epic. The SSCV Sleepnir is a massive semi-submersible crane vessel operating under Harima Marine Contractors and is the sister vessel of the Tielf. The vessel has 2 revolving cranes, each with a respective carrying capacity of a ridiculous 10,000 tons. So naturally, when they're working in tandem, the 2 cranes can lift a 20,000-ton object up and onto the vessel without breaking a sweat. The Sleepnir is still relatively young though, having only just been built in 2019. But the moment it hit the ocean, it became the largest of its kind for the time being. It made waves again because as a part of a maiden voyage, it completed the largest bunkering operation on record, having lifted and transferred 3,000 tons of liquefied gas off the coast of Sumatra. And then again in that same year, she completed a record lift of 15,300 tons when she moved the topsides of the Leviathan Energy Project. She's a young vessel with many more years in front of her, so who knows what other records are just waiting to be broken by the Sleepnir. I guess there's only one way to find out. Number 2. Taisun. Not to be confused with the world-famous boxer Mike Tyson. The Taisun is the most powerful crane in the world. So then again, maybe you should equate this crane to the boxing great. Built in China, the Taisun has a lift capacity of 20,000 tons. It's absolutely amazing. But if you're not quite sure just how heavy that is, it's the equivalent of 8,000 Ford F-150s. But why exactly do you need a gantry crane that lifts up that many cars? Well, it may not literally be hauling around thousands of cars at a time. The Taisun is the prime crane to have on a semi-submersible vessel, the kind that carries offshore oil platforms around the ocean. She's not really screwing around, and in 2008 she broke the record for heaviest lift by crane when she hoisted up a barge that weighed over 21,000 tons. And of course, hundreds of people came to watch her flex her muscles. Number 1. Big KROLL. Seeing as how it earned our number 1 spot, the Saren's SGC250 is the biggest crane in the world. More commonly known as Big KROLL, this giant crane made waves when it first hit the scene in 2018. Manufactured by the Belgian heavy lift company Saren's, this monster is 820 feet tall, or 250 meters, as the name would suggest. And to put those kinds of numbers into perspective, Big KROLL is only about 200 feet shorter than the Eiffel Tower. Big KROLL is also a ring crane, making him stand out even more, and he can lift about 5,000 tons at a time. What could possibly weigh 5,000 tons? Well, how about 50 blue whales, or beams for skyscrapers and parts for nuclear power plants? Obviously, this thing is absolutely enormous, which is why it takes 12 Cat engines grouped into 6 pairs to wheel it around, and the 128 wheels that move it along the 4-mile track. This is another crane that needs to be disassembled when the job is over, and it takes a total of 280 trucks to get all of those parts to the next site, and then another month and a half to put it back together again. Big KROLL. Watch our Machines playlist for more top 15 videos about awesome machines. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best machine videos.